You know that moment when your spouse looks at you like you're a stain on their perfectly pressed shirt? Yeah, I lived that moment, and let me tell you, it didn't just change everything. It taught me exactly how sweet revenge tastes when served cold and calculated. It was a Thursday evening in our Plano subdivision, one of those cookie-cutter neighborhoods where every lawn looks identical, and the HOA sends passive-aggressive letters about mailbox colors. The kind of place where everyone pretends their shit doesn't stink while quietly judging their neighbor's choice in pickup trucks. I was in the kitchen, still wearing my work clothes, dusty Carhartt jeans, steel-toed Red Wings that had walked more construction sites than most executives walk conference rooms, and a Walker Construction polo that had seen better days but still carried the honest smell of concrete dust and hard work. The Presbyterian Hospital cardiac wing renovation had been a beast today, coordinating electrical, rough-ins with the medical equipment specifications, managing 3 different subcontractors who all thought they knew better than the project manager, and dealing with a city inspector who apparently got his engineering degree from a Cracker Jack box. But I was good at my job. Damn good. 8 years of turning blueprints into buildings, managing million-dollar budgets, and making sure that when doctors needed to save lives, the infrastructure was there to support them. Not glamorous work, maybe, but the kind that actually mattered. Riley was at the kitchen island, perfectly put together as always. Navy St. John blazer that cost more than most people's car payments. Cream silk blouse that probably had more care instructions than a newborn baby. And not a single strand of her highlighted hair out of place. She was scrolling through her iPhone with that focused intensity she got when dealing with work stuff, probably coordinating another 6-figure medical equipment sale for her. Regional manager position. The woman I'd married 8 years ago used to greet me with a kiss and ask about my day. This version barely looked up when I walked through the door. So, I said, grabbing a Shiner Bock from the fridge and popping it open with more force than necessary. "What time do you want me to pick you up tomorrow night for your company mixer?" She didn't look up from her phone. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear the neighbor's sprinkler system kicking on outside. "I think it's better if you don't come." I paused, bottle halfway to my lips, tasting the first bitter note of what was about to unfold. "Come again?" Finally, she glanced up, and there it was. That look I'd been seeing more and more lately. Like she was explaining something painfully obvious to a particularly slow child who'd wandered into the wrong classroom. "It's just, these aren't your people, Mason. It's going to be all medical executives, MBA types from SMU and Rice. You'd be bored out of your mind. Now, I've been married to Riley Walker for 8 years. I know when she's protecting my feelings, and I know when she's protecting her image. This wasn't the first one. This was damage control, plain and simple. My people," I set the beer down on our granite countertop with deliberate calm. "Riley, I manage multi-million-dollar construction projects. I coordinate with architects who make more in a month than most people make in a year, engineers who design buildings that have to stand for decades, and city planners who could shut down a project with one signature. I think I can handle cocktail conversation with some suit-wearing medical device salespeople." She sighed, that particular sigh that meant I was missing the point entirely. The same sigh she'd started using when I mentioned my work, my truck, or basically anything that reminded her of who she'd actually married. "It's not about capability, Mason. It's about fit. These people went to schools like SMU, Rice, UT. They vacation in Aspen and have second homes in Cabo. You'd stand out." And there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months, ever since she'd started that executive MBA program and begun networking with Dallas's medical equipment elite. Her husband, the guy who'd worked double shifts to help pay for that degree, who'd celebrated every promotion and commission check like it was his own victory, who'd been her biggest cheerleader through every professional milestone. That husband wasn't good enough for her new crowd. "Stand out how?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. I just wanted to hear her say it. "Like you don't belong," she said, turning back to her phone like the conversation was over. The worst part? She wasn't even trying to be cruel. This was just her practical assessment of the situation. In her mind, she was being considerate, saving me from embarrassment and herself from, what? Having to explain why she'd married a construction manager instead of holding out for another MBA with a trust fund and a country club membership? I finished my beer in silence, watching my wife of 8 years scroll through emails from colleagues who apparently represented the life she actually wanted. The woman who used to brag to her friends about dating a guy who could fix anything, who built things that lasted, who worked with his hands and wasn't afraid of getting dirty. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Riley slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about quarterly sales figures and networking opportunities. But I wasn't thinking about sleeping. I was thinking about belonging, and about showing my wife exactly who belonged where. See, 8 years in Dallas construction teaches you things that they don't cover in business school. It teaches you that the guy in steel-toed boots today might be the guy signing your paycheck tomorrow. It teaches you that relationships matter more than resumes, and that respect is earned through competence, not pedigree. Most importantly, it teaches you that information is currency, and I was about to make a very strategic investment. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that comes from finally understanding the game being played. Riley was already in the shower, getting ready for another day of climbing ladders I apparently wasn't qualified to see, let alone climb myself. I made coffee in our overpriced Breville machine, another one of Riley's investments in our lifestyle, and sat at the kitchen island where she delivered her verdict the night before. The morning light streaming through our plantation shutters illuminated the pristine surfaces of our suburban dream home, every detail carefully curated to project success. But success for whom? See, while Riley was busy reinventing herself as a medical equipment executive, I'd been building something real, Walker. Construction had grown from a two-man operation working residential additions to a firm that hospital administrators called when they needed critical infrastructure done right, on time, and under budget. We weren't the biggest construction company in Dallas, but we were becoming the most trusted. And trust in the construction business is everything. 3 months ago, we'd wrapped up the Presbyterian Hospital cardiac wing renovation. 18 months of coordinating with medical equipment suppliers, electrical engineers, and hospital administrators who needed everything yesterday but wanted it perfect. The kind of project that could make or break a company's reputation. We'd delivered it 2 weeks early and 15% under budget. The project manager on the medical equipment side had been impressed enough to keep my business card. Her name was Autumn Brooks, and she'd just been promoted to VP of Strategic Partnerships at MedEquip Solutions, Riley's company. One phone call, that's all it took. Autumn, Mason Walker from Walker Construction. You mentioned at the project wrap-up that you'd be interested in discussing future collaborations. Mason, of course. The cardiac wing project was flawless. What did you have in mind? I've been thinking about the integration challenges we solved on the Presbyterian project. With the trend toward outpatient surgical centers, there might be opportunities for construction firms that really understand medical equipment, requirements to partner with suppliers on the front end of these developments. 20 minutes later, I had a personal invitation to MedEquip Solutions' quarterly executive mixer from the VP herself, with a +1 that I politely declined, explaining that my wife would be attending through her own channels. I spent the rest of the morning researching the guest list, cross-referencing names with projects my company had worked on, and identifying the key players who would be at this little soiree. Information is currency, and I was about to become very rich indeed. The funny thing about construction in a city like Dallas is that everything connects. The woman developing luxury condos in Uptown needed the same electrical contractors I used for hospitals. The architect designing the new surgery center in Plano had worked with me on 3 previous projects. The real estate investor financing medical office buildings had recommended Walker Construction to 2 different developers last year alone. Riley thought her world was separate from mine, more elevated, more sophisticated. What she didn't realize was that her world was built on mine. Literally, in some cases. By lunch, I had a strategy. By the end of the workday, I had allies. That evening, I made sure to shower extra long, scrubbing every trace of concrete dust from under my fingernails. I put on my best suit, the charcoal gray Armani I'd bought for our friend's wedding last year. Italian, wool, tailored fit that had cost me a week's overtime, but made me look like I belonged in boardrooms instead of building them. Riley had already left in her BMW, the car payment on which was more than some people's rent. She'd kissed my cheek absently on her way out, told me she'd catch a ride home with a colleague, and reminded me not to wait up since these things tended to run late. Have fun with your people, I'd said, And she'd missed the edge in my voice completely. Perfect. That gave me time to make final preparations. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, adjusting my tie with the same precision I used to check blueprints. The man looking back at me wasn't the dusty construction worker Riley was embarrassed to claim. This was a businessman who'd built something from nothing, who'd earned respect through competence and reliability, who commanded six-figure projects and delivered results that kept hospitals running. This was the man Riley had forgotten she'd married tonight, I'd remind her. The venue was the Rosewood Crescent Hotel, one of those places where the valet parking costs more than most people spend on dinner, and the cocktails have names longer than most construction contracts. I handed over the keys to my F-150 Raptor. Not the luxury sedan Riley thought I should drive, but a truck that could haul equipment to job sites and still look good enough for client dinners. The kid in the bow tie taking my keys looked like he'd never seen calluses on someone's hands, but he handled the truck with appropriate respect. Money talks, but success speaks louder. Walking into the elevator, I felt that familiar calm that comes before executing a well-planned project. Every detail had been considered, every contingency planned for. The foundation was solid, the framework was in place, and now it was time to see if the structure would hold. The rooftop terrace was gorgeous, Dallas skyline glittering like scattered diamonds, string, lights creating an intimate ambiance, and well-dressed professionals clustered around high-top tables with drinks that probably cost more than my crew's lunch budget for a week. But I wasn't impressed. I'd built places like this. I knew what went into creating the infrastructure that made these parties possible, from the electrical systems powering the ambient lighting to the structural engineering that let 100 people stand on a rooftop 30 floors above the street. I spotted Riley immediately. She was near the bar, animated and laughing with a group of colleagues. Her laugh was different, higher, more practiced, like she'd taken lessons on how successful people were supposed to sound. Her whole posture was different too, more rigid, like she was performing the role of medical equipment executive rather than actually being one. Standing next to her was a guy I recognized from the company photos on MedEquip Solutions website, Logan Mitchell, Senior Sales Director. Expensive Rolex that caught the light every time he gestured, perfectly styled hair that probably required more product than my truck's monthly maintenance, and the kind of confident smile that came from never having to worry about whether his credit card would be declined. He had his hand on the small of Riley's back in a way that made my jaw tighten. Not inappropriate exactly, but familiar. Too familiar. Like there were inside jokes I hadn't been part of in a long time. I grabbed a whiskey from the bar, Macallan 18, because why not? And surveyed the room like a general assessing the battlefield. That's when I heard my name. Mason Walker, is that really you? I turned to see Autumn Brooks approaching, followed by two other women I recognized from various construction meetings around the city. Paige Morrison from Morrison Commercial Real Estate, the woman who'd facilitated 3 of my biggest hospital contracts, and Kendall Hayes from Hayes Architecture, who'd specifically requested Walker Construction for her last 2 medical facility designs. All 3 were power players in their own right. All 3 had worked with my company on major projects, and all 3 looked genuinely pleased to see me. Not surprised, pleased. Ladies, I said, genuinely happy to see them, but also acutely aware of the opportunity presenting itself. What brings the real estate and architecture elite to the medical device party? Autumn laughed, a sound that was warm and authentic in a way that Riley's performance laugh wasn't. Paige and I have been discussing a potential partnership with MedEquip Solutions for their expansion into outpatient surgery centers. Kendall's designing 3 of them in the northern suburbs. When I mentioned you'd be here tonight, they insisted on coming. Across the terrace, I saw Riley's head snap in our direction. Her conversation with Logan Mitchell faltered as she watched 3 successful, attractive businesswomen greet. Me like an old friend, like someone who belonged. The look on her face was priceless. Confusion mixed with something that might have been fear, like she was watching a movie where the supporting character had suddenly become the lead. So, Paige said, linking her arm through mine with the easy familiarity of someone who'd seen me solve construction crises at 6 a.m. and still managed to look professional by 9. Tell us about this cardiac wing project. Autumn says you delivered it 2 weeks early and 15% under budget. And with 0 change orders from the medical equipment side, Kendall added. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Most contractors treat medical installations like afterthoughts. You integrated everything from the foundation up. And just like that, we were deep in conversation about construction logistics, medical equipment integration, and the kind of technical details that make most people's eyes glaze over. But not these women. They got it. They understood that when I talked about load-bearing modifications and electrical infrastructure upgrades, I wasn't just showing off. I was demonstrating the kind of expertise that made million-dollar projects succeed. More importantly, they respected it. They asked follow-up questions that showed they understood the complexity involved. They referenced other projects where poor construction planning had caused massive delays and cost overruns. They treated me like what I was, an expert in my field. From the corner of my eye, I could see Riley excusing herself from her group, making her way across the terrace toward us. Her professional smile was firmly in place, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped her wine glass just a little too tightly. The real challenge on the Presbyterian project, I was explaining to Kendall, was coordinating the MRI installation with the electrical infrastructure. Those machines required dedicated power, supplies, and specific shielding requirements. Most contractors just throw in extra circuits and hope for the best. Which is exactly why the installation failed at Methodist last year, Paige interjected. 6 weeks of delays because they had to redo the electrical work. Exactly. We brought in a specialist electrical engineer for the design phase, then had our crew work directly with the MRI technicians during installation. Extra cost up front, but it saved everyone time and money in the long run. Autumn nodded approvingly. That kind of forward thinking is why we specify Walker Construction for complex installations. Mason's the only contractor in Dallas who's never missed a medical equipment deadline. Mason? Riley's voice carried that note of surprise actors use when they want the audience to believe they're shocked. What are you doing here? The question hung in the air like smoke from a controlled burn, and I let it hang there for a moment longer than was comfortable. Let her squirm a little. Let her wonder how her blue-collar husband had found his way into her exclusive professional circle. Riley, I said calmly, turning to face her with the same measured confidence I used when presenting project proposals to hospital boards. I'd like you to meet some colleagues. Autumn Brooks, VP of Strategic Partnerships at your company, Paige Morrison, Morrison Commercial Real Estate, and Kendall Hayes from Hayes Architecture. I watched her face cycle through expressions like a computer processing data it couldn't quite parse, recognition, confusion, and finally something that looked almost like panic. "Oh," she said, that professional smile never wavering, but somehow becoming more brittle with each passing second. "How nice. I didn't realize you knew people here." "Actually," Autumn interjected smoothly, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrents of tension crackling between Riley and me, "Mason's company has been our preferred contractor for major medical installations for the past 2 years. His team handled the Presbyterian Hospital renovation last quarter. Absolutely flawless execution." Riley's smile became even more rigid, like someone had cranked the tension on a guitar string until it was about to snap. "How wonderful. Mason, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" But Kendall was already launching into a story about a particularly challenging installation we'd completed last month at Dallas Methodist, where the original contractor had botched the foundation work for a new imaging center. The way she told it, Walker Construction had swooped in like construction superheroes, redesigned the structural support system, and delivered the project on time despite starting 3 weeks behind schedule. The original team had poured concrete without accounting for the weight distribution of the MRI equipment, Kendall was saying, her hands gesturing animatedly as she spoke. Mason's crew had to essentially build a building within a building to create the proper support structure, plus isolate it for electromagnetic interference, Paige added. Most contractors would have told the hospital to find a different location for the equipment. Mason figured out how to make it work in the existing space. Riley stood there, listening to a conversation about concrete curing times and electromagnetic shielding, about permits and city planning departments, and the 17 different ways a medical equipment installation could go sideways if you didn't have the right team managing it. I could see the exact moment when she realized that this wasn't just shop talk. This was strategy. This was business worth millions of dollars, and her husband was at the center of it. The real innovation, I was explaining to Autumn, was coordinating the equipment delivery with the final electrical inspection. Most contractors treat those as separate phases, but if you time it right, you can have the equipment online and calibrated while the inspectors are still on site. Saves weeks of scheduling delays. Which is exactly why we specify Walker Construction for these projects, Autumn said, raising her champagne flute in a mock toast. He's the only contractor in Dallas who's never missed a medical equipment deadline, not once in 2 years. I felt a surge of satisfaction watching Riley process this information. Her husband, the man she was embarrassed to introduce to her colleagues, was apparently impressive enough that the VP of her own company sought him out for major projects. That's really impressive, Riley managed, her voice sounding strained around the edges. Riley works for MedEquip Solutions too, I said, my tone conversational, but with just enough emphasis to make it clear I was enjoying this moment. Regional sales manager, I'm sure you two have crossed paths. Autumn's eyebrows raised in recognition. Riley Walker? Of course. You handle the North Texas territory. I've seen your numbers. Very impressive work. For a moment, I thought Riley might relax, finding herself on familiar professional ground. But then Paige asked the question that changed everything. So Riley, have you been involved in any of the construction integration projects? It's such an advantage when sales and construction teams coordinate from the beginning of a project. Riley blinked, clearly lost. Construction integration? The Presbyterian project, for example, Kendall elaborated, having sales, construction, and architecture working together from the design phase. It's revolutionizing how we approach medical facility development. I watched Riley's face as she realized that not only did these women know and respect her husband's work, but they were discussing business strategies that were completely outside her area of expertise. She was the one who didn't understand the conversation. I focus more on the equipment sales side, Riley said weakly. Mason handles all the construction details. Well, you're lucky to have access to his expertise at home, Autumn said with a smile. The integration challenges on these projects are incredibly complex. Having a contractor who understands medical equipment requirements from the ground up is invaluable. 20 minutes later, Riley excused herself to find the restroom, walking away from our little group with quick, purposeful steps that didn't quite hide the fact that she was fleeing. Logan Mitchell, who had been hovering at the edge of our conversation, looking increasingly uncomfortable as it became clear he couldn't contribute anything meaningful to the discussion, followed her with his eyes and then drifted away to find a conversation more suited to his skill set. So, Paige said once Riley was out of earshot, "Want to tell us what's really going on here?" I took a sip of my whiskey, savoring both the smooth burn of the Macallan and the moment of triumph. Let's just say my wife has some opinions about whether I belong at events like this. Kendall snorted. Seriously? You've built half the medical facilities in North Dallas. If you don't belong here, who does? Someone with an MBA from SMU, apparently, I said, allowing a note of bitter amusement to creep into my voice. The three women exchanged glances, the kind of silent communication that passes between people who've spent enough time in professional settings to recognize corporate politics when they see it. Her loss, Autumn said simply. Speaking of which, I meant what I said about the integration projects. We're looking at expanding into outpatient surgery centers, and we could use a construction partner who really understands the medical side of the business. Would Walker Construction be interested in discussing a formal partnership? I smiled, the kind of smile that probably looked pleasant enough, but carried an edge of satisfaction, that I hoped Riley would notice when she eventually returned from whatever emotional processing she was doing in the ladies' room. I'm very interested, I said, very interested indeed. When Riley finally returned from the ladies' room, her professional mask was back in place, but I could see the cracks around the edges. Her smile was a little too bright, her posture a little too straight, like someone who'd just received very bad news and was trying to pretend otherwise. She rejoined our conversation just as Autumn was explaining the scope of MedEquip Solutions' expansion plans. 15 new outpatient surgery centers across North Texas over the next 3 years, each one requiring specialized construction expertise that apparently only Walker Construction could provide. The profit margins on these projects are substantial, Paige was saying, especially when you factor in the long-term maintenance contracts. We're talking about a partnership that could triple your current revenue. Riley listened in silence, her wine glass clutched in both hands like a lifeline. Every few minutes, she'd try to contribute something to the conversation, but it became increasingly clear that she was out of her depth. These women weren't just making small talk about medical equipment sales. They were discussing million-dollar development strategies, regulatory compliance issues, and the kind of complex project management that required expertise she didn't possess. The challenge, I was explaining, is that most developers treat medical facilities like any other commercial construction. They don't understand that hospitals and surgery centers have completely different infrastructure requirements. Electrical loads, air filtration systems, waste management. It's a completely different level of complexity. Which is why this partnership makes so much sense, Kendall said. Walker Construction understands the medical side. MedEquip Solutions has the equipment expertise and client relationships, and Morrison Real Estate can identify the optimal locations. We could essentially create a turnkey solution for medical facility development. I could see Riley doing the math in her head, calculating what this kind of partnership would mean for our household income, our social status, our entire life trajectory. The man she'd been embarrassed to introduce to her colleagues was being offered a business opportunity that would dwarf her own salary. The irony was delicious. "Mason," Autumn said, pulling out her phone, "I'd like to set up a formal meeting next week to discuss this in detail. Are you available Tuesday afternoon?" "I'll make myself available," I said, accepting her business card with a kind of gracious professionalism that Riley had apparently thought I lacked. The party continued around us for another hour, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Instead of Riley networking while I stood awkwardly in the corner, I found myself at the center of multiple conversations about construction projects, development opportunities, and business partnerships. Riley, meanwhile, drifted from group to group, like someone looking for a conversation she could actually participate in. Every so often I'd catch her watching me, her expression unreadable. Was she proud, confused, angry, all of the above? Honestly, I didn't much care anymore. She'd made her choice when she told me I didn't belong here. Now she could live with the consequences. The drive home was quiet. Riley sat in the passenger seat of my truck, staring out the window at the blur of suburban streetlights, her evening clutch balanced on her lap like a small shield. The silent stretch between us, thick with unspoken words and realizations that couldn't be taken back. We were almost to our driveway when she finally spoke. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "Didn't know what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. "About the hospital project, about Autumn knowing who you were, about any of it." I pulled into our garage and cut the engine. In the sudden silence, I could hear the house settling around us, the familiar sounds of a life that was about to change whether we wanted it to or not. "You didn't know because you never asked," I said, my voice calm and matter-of-fact. "You saw the work boots and the company truck, and decided that meant I was just some blue-collar guy who couldn't possibly understand your sophisticated world of medical equipment sales." She flinched at that, but I wasn't done. "But here's the thing, Riley. My world and your world aren't separate. My world built your world. Those fancy medical facilities where you sell your equipment, I built them. Those hospitals where you network with administrators, I know half of them personally because I've solved their construction problems." She turned to look at me then, and for the first time in months I saw uncertainty instead of condescension in her expression. "What happens now?" she asked. I considered the question seriously, thinking about the business partnership Autumn had proposed, about the revenue projections Paige had outlined, about the professional respect I'd commanded from women who didn't know or care about my educational background. "Now," I said, "you get to decide if you want to be married to the kind of man who gets invited to executive meetings, or if you'd prefer to keep pretending that success only comes with an MBA. I got out of the truck and walked into the house, leaving her sitting alone in the darkness of our garage. 6 months later, Walker Construction had partnered with MedEquip Solutions on 3 major projects, with a dozen more in the pipeline. The partnership had been featured in Dallas Business Journal as an innovative model for medical facility development. My company's revenue had increased by 340%, and I'd been invited to speak at a healthcare infrastructure conference in Austin. Riley still worked in medical equipment sales, but she wasn't my wife anymore. She'd moved into a downtown apartment that better suited her image of professional success. The divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences, which was true enough. What they didn't mention was that some differences can't be reconciled when one person decides the other isn't worth the effort. Riley had made that choice long before that Thursday evening in our kitchen. I'd just finally stopped pretending otherwise. These days, when people ask me about belonging, I tell them the truth. You don't fight for a seat at someone else's table. You build your own table and let them decide if they're worthy of an invitation.